Hi, everybody. Today we're going to talk about Chapter 5, and I'm trying a new program, so I'm hoping that this works better for you guys in terms of everyone being able to see it and it fits on your screen. So, Chapter 5 is about physical development with infants and toddlers. And the first factor fiction that we're going to talk about is during the first year of life, most infants triple their body weight. And this is actually a fact. It's the only time in your life when you want to triple your body weight. So, infants who are born at 7 pounds, they should be weighing about 21 pounds by the time they hit 1 year old, and that's give or take a few pounds. But the first year of life is the most rapid time of growth in anybody's life they will ever have. Number 2, at birth, newborns can sleep up to 17 uninterrupted hours a day. And this is actually not true, and what gives it away is the uninterrupted. Infants need a lot of food, and they could not go 17 hours without food. 3, all healthy infants develop the same motor skills at the same sequence. This is actually true. And number 4, at birth, infants' vision is better developed than their hearing. This is not true. Their vision actually is not very good at birth. So how does body size affect, change in an infant? We know over that from 0 to 4 months that their weight doubles. By 1 year, their weight triples. And at 2 years, they're half an adult height. And there's an old wives' tale that that if you double their height at 2, that's how tall they'll be as adults. And I'm still waiting to see if that's true or not. We will see. And just know that it's really important. That's why there's so many well-child checkups that first year of life for infants, because they really are having their growth monitored. So, sleep time for infants. We know that infants need a lot of sleep. All kids sleep fewer hours per 24 hours as they grow, and the range of hours of sleep seems to be less over time. So, if you look age over months, infants from 0 to 2 sleep the most in the 95th percentile, and in the 25th percentile, they don't sleep quite as much. And then you have the poor parents whose infants don't sleep very much, who are in the 5th percentile of sleep, who are maybe sleeping 8 or 9 hours, which is tough with an infant because oftentimes they're so overtired, they're crying a lot. So do infants dream? Full-term babies dream a lot, with about half their sleep as is considered in something called REM sleep, rapid eye movement. And when they're actually sleeping, you can see their eyelids moving behind it. By 3 to 4 months, quiet, slow wave sleep increases. Most thinking, feeling, and sensing involves the cortex, something called the neocortex. There are billions of neurons in the central nervous system in the brain. And one thing we do know is that some areas of the cortex, such as those devoted to the basic senses, mature relatively early. On the other hand, the frontal cortex does not mature completely until quite a bit later, after age 20. And that's one of the reasons why we find that there's teenagers that don't always make the wisest decisions, because their frontal cortex, which has a lot of their reasoning, does not mature until they're close to 20. So as you watch the animation, you might be interested to know that the term mnemonics, that is memory aids, especially techniques that use vivid imagery and organizational devices, come from the Greek word for memory. Each neuron has a single axon and numerous dendrites, which spread out like branches of a tree. Axons and dendrites meet at the synapses, which are the brain's critical communication links.
Axons announce.
Some dendrites, in a process called pruning, wither away because no experiences have caused them to send a message to the axons or the other neurons. And transient exuberance is the great but temporary increase in the number of dendrites that occurs in the infant's brain during the first 2 years of life. So there's something called experience expectant and experience dependent. And you can see those by those pictures, they're two different things. Experience expectant functions certain basic common experiences for normal development. They're really important, like see how the baby is touching his father's face and staring at him. Experience dependent brain functions are variable experiences that may or may not develop in a particular infant. And you can see she's doing some reasoning. Deficits related to self-righting mean literally returning to a sitting or standing upright after being tipped over. People of all ages have self-righting impulses for emotional as well as physical balance. In general, adults should follow a baby's curiosity. Infants respond most strongly and positively to whatever their brains need. That's why very young babies like to look at and listen to music mobiles, strangers on the street, and best of all, their animated caregivers. So the sensory system includes the eyes, ears, skin, tongue, and nose. And perception occurs in the cortex. The parts of the cortex dedicated to the senses develop rapidly. Cognition follows perception when people think about what they've seen. The brain connects the apparent sizes of the two bars, perpetually expanding the top bar and shrinking the bottom bar. Eliminating the background illustration destroys the illusion. So if you look at, do you see the green bars? Which are they the same length or are they a different length? They're actually the same length. Two different tests at the doctor's office can be used to screen for hearing loss in babies. In both tests, no activity is required from your child other than lying still. The otoacoustic emission (OAE) test shows whether parts of the ear respond properly to sound. During this test, a soft sponge earphone is inserted into your baby's ear canal and emits a series of sounds to measure an echo response that occurs in normal hearing ears. If there's no echo, it could indicate hearing loss. If there's no echo, the auditory brainstem response (ABR) test shows how the auditory brainstem, the part of the nerve that carries sound from ear to the brain, and the brain respond to sound by measuring their electrical activity as your child listens. During this test, your baby wears small earphones in the ears and electrodes in the head. If the child doesn't respond consistently to the sounds presented during either of these tests, the doctor will suggest a follow-up hearing screening and a referral to an audiologist for a more comprehensive hearing evaluation. So, which image do you think the babies prefer? Binocular vision is the ability to focus the two eyes in a coordinated manner in order to see one image. We know that binocular vision is an ability that is absent at birth. Vision is the least mature sense at birth, but face perception research shows that even newborns prefer a face pattern to a scrambled pattern. Brain development, not eye development, is what allows the ability to suddenly appear at around 14 weeks. So this scrambled one is not the one that the infants prefer. They prefer the face. Taste, smell, and touch function at birth. Babies recognize each person's smell and handling. In addition to touch and smell, babies learn to appreciate to eat what their mothers eat, first through breast milk and then through small spoonfuls of whatever the family's eating. The word gross in gross motor skills means big, such as the big movements in walking and jumping. As the test explained, age norms are approximate and are affected by culture and cohort. These are the U.S. norms, mostly for European American children. Mastering skills a few weeks earlier or later is not an indicator of health or intelligence. Mastering them very late, however, is a cause for concern. So you can see, like, when infants can run, 50% of babies can run at 18 months, and 95% of babies can run at 20 months. So if you have an 18-month-old who's not running, are they delayed? The answer is no, they are not showing any delays. The word fine in fine motor skills means small, especially small movements of the hands and fingers when drawing or picking up a coin. A 4-month-old can just clasp its toes with its hands. A 9-month-old can hold a small ball in its hands. A 1-year-old can use thumb and forefinger to pick up a small object like a key. A 2-year-old can clasp glasses and then pull them off an adult's face, which we've all probably experienced at some point or another. What are some ethnic variations related to crawling and walking? We know that Jamaican children are some of the earliest walkers. Parents of children in Bali believe that crawling on all fours is for animals, not humans, so they don't allow their infants to ever crawl. And until a child walks, Bang mothers from the Ivory Coast do not engage in sexual relations. Although the Bang do not recognize the connection, one reason for this prohibition may actually be a form of birth control. Improvement in public health measures, things like clean water, nourishing food, and immunizations, is the main reason why child mortality has declined. So if you see the ones that have a star, they have reduced at least 1/3 since 1990. And the ones with a plus sign have reduced by half or more since 1990. And that's a lot of it has to do with educating parents about breastfeeding instead of formula that they can't afford and they water down a lot, and getting good water in the areas. So what are some diseases that have been largely eradicated due to childhood immunizations? The first one, smallpox, polio, then measles, and then rotavirus. And all four of these are basically considered obsolete at this point. Originally, scientific investigation led to a correlation between sleeping on backs with fewer deaths from SIDS. Since 1994, back sleeping has cut SIDS in half in nation after nation. So it used to be that we always put babies to sleep on their bellies, on their tummies, and they slept very well. But now we realize that more babies died of sudden infant death syndrome. So we now have, it's called Back to Sleep is the campaign that babies now sleep on their backs. And then regarding nutrition, why is breastfeeding important? Breastfed babies build greater immunity, have better vision, higher IQ, later puberty, less obesity or hypertension by age 12. There's just so many benefits, and obviously it's also free. And that's really a big deal because we want to make sure that, especially in developing countries, that we don't get parents hooked to formula that costs lots of money that they won't be able to sustain when they leave the hospital. Nutrition. What happens to children who are malnourished? It's horrible that this still exists in our world. Stunting is something that's called the failure of children to grow to normal height for their age due to severe and chronic malnutrition. And wasting is the tendency for children to be severely underweight for their age as a result of malnutrition. And basically the children, their brain development, everything, because they need fat for even their brain to develop. So closing thoughts about Chapter 5. What I'd like you guys to do now is go into the forum section and answer the questions. You have a choice of some questions that you can respond to. Thanks.